Hariom everyone, and welcome to The Journey of a Lifetime, Parenting. Today we have with us Pujya Swami Swaroopananda, and he will be answering all of our burning questions regarding how to be the best new parents possible. Hariom Swamiji, thank you so much for joining us today on this lovely question answer session. I have just had a little girl 6 months ago, and I have so many questions to ask you, Swamiji, just to get the right perspective as I'm starting my journey as a new parent. The first question is really about measuring our own success. So there's so much research that we do. There's so much that we put into trying to figure out how to be that perfect parent. And I wanted to ask you, Swamiji, how is it that we can know if we're doing a good job? Because most of the times we feel like we're not doing enough and that there's so much more that we could do. But how do we measure that success as a parent?
Especially parents with very little children, I know what difficulties, what challenges you face. That's why earlier, when there were larger families, you would get all the support from the elders, say the grandparents of the child, or even the great-grandparents sometimes. You'd get guidance from the other, senior members of the family. You would get support for them, and you didn't have to make research, because there's so much out there that you can get confused. I would still say, if you've had good parenting, ask your parents what you should be doing. It'll help you, parents, in-laws, ask them if they've done a good job with your spouse, ask them how they managed, and get support wherever you require. Now, I know certain places that's not available, and you'd still be going through a lot of such confusions, dilemmas that come to the mind. Am I being a good parent? See, a parent is generally always good only. Since you love your child, you will do your best for the child. But don't be overly worried. Please understand that nature has given every animal the instinct to nurture their child. So also human beings. But we human beings get overly involved with our thoughts, judging ourselves, etc. I'm sure most of the parents with little guidance would be doing a fantastic job. And let your heart tell you what you should be doing at that time. Don't worry about things. Children are born with their own instinct. In fact, even babies left alone have survived. So don't be overly concerned, and in the process then we, of course, be hard on ourselves, and especially, young parents get so hard on themselves. Don't be hard on yourself. Follow your heart, follow your instinct, take guidance from older people. There are also professionals in the field. Take guidance from them, and then follow one set of guidance. Don't get yourself completely confused.
Yes, Swamiji, that's absolutely true. We also hear very often that it takes a village to raise a child. So Swamiji, you talked a lot about how elders guide us so well in parenting our own children. And one thing that I've noticed is my grandmother is here with us, and that's Kaivalya's great-grandmother. She knows so instinctively what she needs in that moment. Oh, her diaper's dirty, or she's hungry, she needs this, or she's just able to communicate with her so well. And I was wondering, how is it that we as new parents can tune ourselves better to understand the needs of newborns and infants when they can't really communicate with us through words, but just through sounds and crying? How is it that we can make ourselves more in tune with our children?
Should I be a bit humorous?
Absolutely.
When you have your second child, you would know better. First time, you don't trust your instincts, and of course, you are not even familiar with how your instincts are telling you what the child needs. You might even make a few mistakes, and of course, these things I hear from parents itself, so or what we have seen in various parents when we've seen their children grow. So one will get to know, as I said, don't be too hard upon yourself, don't stress yourself too much. You have the instinct and you will be able to guide them if you are not over anxious or your mind is not disturbed. And the children also know how to get it. Like if you see in animals, when the child is hungry, will straight go and hit the udder of the cow, and the mother then recognizes that the child has to feed. And even the mother knows when she has overfed the child and then stops the child from drinking more if required. Sometimes the child itself knows. So between the mother and the child, especially when it comes to nursing the child, feeding the child, somehow or the other, what I recognize is that the general instinct given by nature will kick in. It's only when we get so involved in thinking that actually the parent gets stressed out, and know that that stress goes to the child also, because they're still very linked with the mother, and the stress goes to the child. The child also, in a way, we can't know the little child's psychology, but the child also gets kind of confused. Otherwise, the child will follow its instinct, will keep on, maybe just keep on crying till the mother does the right thing. And over a period of time, I hear even from others that they now know the pitch of the cry, and you don't have to study it when the child is hungry or when the child needs a change of diapers. So somehow the other, the parent gets to know it. So as I said, don't be too hard on yourself. Some things you learn in the process, and you wouldn't be making some very big drastic mistake, because of course you're protective, you're looking after your child. So just main thing is, whenever we do anything with a calm mind, we know exactly what to do. So from a higher mental standpoint or spiritual standpoint, where there is love, where there is calmness of mind, you know what to do. And nature has definitely given that instinct. So follow that instinct.
That's actually a perfect segue into the next question that I had, which is, maintaining that calm mind seems to require us to have enough sleep, or to have enough time to focus on just getting our mental balance together. So for new parents that are so involved in taking care of this baby and are already, very sleep deprived because of the constant waking at night and whatnot, what is it that you recommend for them in terms of how they can take moments out through the day for their own self-care?
Of course, as I said, one needs help during that time, and if there's an extended family, somehow that sleep time is also shared. However, where we have one unit family, this is indeed a matter of great concern for the parents themselves and for their children also. So, and sleep deprivation can cause a lot more anxieties and other emotional, what we'd say, emotional, let's say emotional upheavals that can happen at that time. Maybe it's a very strong thing, but it does happen. And those emotional upheavals can arise one cannot be focused, one may feel that I'm not doing my job well, and of course, when attentiveness goes away, you don't know exactly what the child needs at that time. So all this builds up and then makes a person even more sleepless. But like in every work, again, what nature does is, that is why during that time the parents do have a very short or span of sleep and will wake up even with the slightest of noise or any flutter that takes place. Again, which means nature has made the parents to adapt to that kind of sleep during the time where the child requires the night attention. Also, what I hear from parents is a little bit of sleep training time that is given to the children. Some children still do not, go to that timing, and of course they need to be fed, especially the mother needs to keep getting up. So between the two, husband and wife, mother for feeding has to get up, but between the husband and wife, they can try to take some time where one spends a certain number of hours at night with the child. Yet I do understand the mothers do have to go through because of feeding their children, and they feel sometimes sleep deprived. But many of us sleep deprived feeling comes when we feel that we need a certain amount of sleep and we are not getting it, and therefore I will not be able to perform. I've seen people, not only as parents, but people who, when they are inspired by their work, require very little amount of sleep, and they do not get any emotional, or they find themselves to be mentally dull. We don't find that actually happening. And that way, I remember once I had a lot of work, and Guruji Swami Tejomayananda had come. I was doing his work, I was organizing, etc. So, and plus I had to arrange for my programs. I was coordinating with, from the east to the west. So, of course, they were calling at night. All this was going on, and naturally, I was hardly having a couple of hours of sleep. And it started probably showing in my face. So, I, suddenly Guruji looked at me and he said, "You've not been sleeping." He just looked at me, and I know that even he was spending so many hours, and he just looked at me. He said, "You have to steal your moments of sleep." Yeah? So it's not the quantity, it's not the period of time for your sleep, it's the quality of sleep that you get. Again, when nature has given you that role, those small gaps and naps that you manage to get, and even if you wake up for the child, it will be sufficient to keep you going. Yet, for some, it can become a problem, and whatever help that they require, whether to support the child or to support them mentally, at that time they must take that kind of help, because it can be very difficult when you are sleep deprived, and when you are not able to sleep and you get anxious because of that.
Swamiji, if staying at home isn't an option and we have to work during this time that we're raising our little one, how is it that we can utilize this experience to become a better parent?
See, when there is work to be done and it's essential professionally or for finance reasons, career, as well as, of course, the child is there, and at that moment the child does need the parent very much, because the child is completely dependent. So naturally parents go through this struggle. But what is important here is that there are many unessentials even at work or even at home, that one should then keep those aside or prioritize and see what is more essential and or what is more important and work with that. That way one can even, look after their career, look after their children, and the unessentials can be dropped out. Yet there are times there's a lot of pressure, and especially when there are needs, financial needs, etc. So there's a lot of pressure, and because the way society has changed, it is of course important also that the society's support is there. I'm aware that in certain countries, young parents are given a long-term leave so that they can be with the children and maybe do only as much as it is possible to do. So yes, society also must be considerate, because that's how now society has evolved. There are, smaller unit of family. There are sometimes even single parents who have to juggle between both, and it's very, very difficult, especially for them. And at that time, societies, companies, national support, if it's there, definitely will be helpful for such parents. Yet, when we build society, when we break its framework or make its framework, these things must be taken into consideration. Otherwise, these are the problems that people will face, and in the upbringing of the child, parents go through a lot of trauma, as well as, of course, the little children do not get that kind of upbringing that will make them feel that they had that affectionate love, because only that they can see at that time or feel at that time, and which remains in their deeper conscious mind, where they should grow with the feeling of security. They must grow with the feeling of I'm loved, because these emotions these children can pick up. They may not know later on why, etc., but they begin to pick up. So it's essential that parents do give quality time to their little children, and of course at a certain age they have to be with the children. So whether working from home should be allowed, etc. These are things that we need to create. And I think it's nice that instead of demanding, parents who have that independence, if they are doing their own business or they are doing their own jobs, or they have communication with their companies, etc. And of course not in a sense of revolt, because society has to adjust to all these things. So if that is created, it will be very helpful. In certain countries, certain societies, I know it's being done, but where there are other requirements, it may not be possible. But at home, main thing is that prioritize, give up the unessentials. You don't have to give up your career, you don't have to neglect your child. Give up the unessentials, and that way you'll find time for both.
Okay, fantastic. And the another facet of parenting, especially as it is a new experience for new parents, is how you grow with your spouse through this experience. So my husband and I have actually been married for now, I think this will be 12 years, but we felt as though this was a completely new experience for both of us as a couple. And Swamiji, I just wanted to know from you, how is it that couples can grow through this experience, and how is it that they can come together to find new perspectives through this experience?
Whenever there's a new member in the family, things change. But when a relationship is built on love, understanding, and acceptance, together they have this, in a way, a very exciting change in their relationship, that grows even deeper, because now they have to take another responsibility together. And both responsibility should be equal, but both sense of responsibility and what they have to do is different. And yet they have to come together and recognize that unity in that diversity of their roles that they have to play. Because I know the next question that comes up is, what's the role between the two parents, and they are very different, etc. But that's the understanding level that you come to, that in spite of the differences, that acceptance and the importance of that kind of role, which may not be my way, but is a way that is needed for the child from the child's parent. So it's no doubt, as you said, it's a very new phase of life which can actually intensify your relationship, make it even more enriched. You have a common factor to love and therefore strengthen your own relationship. Yes, there are sometimes people, they get into conflict, the stress, and generally it's the stress, the anxiety that comes about, it's the non-acceptance, it's the expectations, and some relationships get worse. But it's not necessarily that that should happen if we have the love, understanding, and the acceptance that the child requires both the parents equally but differently.
That's fantastic advice, Swamiji. To approach things with love and acceptance, I think will really help every new parent couple to see things in a proper perspective, and to utilize this experience to grow together with this new member of their family. On that same note, I also had a question with regards to parenting styles. So, Swamiji, coming from different backgrounds, the parenting styles can also be very different. How is it that we can blend those styles to be the best scenario for our child?
Of course, each parent will be able to parent in the manner they have been parented, but when they have the love, the values, and the best wishes for the child, both parents are trying to give the best that they have got from their parenting, which has helped them to give to the child. Of course, I know this is a situation when we say that both parents have that. There can be also some difficulties and challenges, but let's take for that both parents are trying to give the child the best that they have received from their parents. And again, we must understand that, as I said before, that differences are not the problem. In fact that they come from two different backgrounds, and we see that, of course, there should not be too large differences, because they will not be able to understand and accept each other. That is why when people meet together and try to choose their partner in life, it is also that in how many ways that we have similar upbringings, standards, goals, etc. But there will be slight differences, and we must accept it. And at the same time, just to give you an example rather than just going abstract, see, one parent would be disciplinary, the other person necessarily will not be disciplined, and in a way the other person who is disciplinary thinks, oh, the spouse is spoiling the child. The child needs both a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of discipline. And generally you will find that nature again creates this balance. If one is slightly stricter, the other would be a little bit more gentler. And actually balances the child. So, as long as one is out of love, which is not opposed to certain values, certain disciplines, certain methodologies may change amongst the people, but allow that to happen. And the child knows what's to pick up the best. Somehow, we all know it. That's why each one of us turns out different with the same set of parents. No? So the child also will, in a way, attract certain emotions. When people have number of children, you will see that one child, as you would say, can get away with any mischief, and the other is disciplined. You wonder, why would that be? That child requires discipline. The other child requires that freedom. You can't really sit and judge, but somehow instinctively you will find one or the other parent giving that kind of leverage to the child. Yes, when it comes to certain values, where the value may be something that can be harmful to the child, there is where, together one should sit and say, we have to see that this does not come to the child. For example, someone has the habit of speaking rudely. Nobody should speak rudely to each other, but one of the spouse, raises their voice or speaks rudely. You come to an agreement, please don't do it in front of the child. And because of the love of the child, one may be able to handle those emotions which normally they may be using quite frequently or expressing quite frequently. So again, a bit of acceptance. It's not always my way, it should be our way.
That's a fantastic point. It's something that we should all keep in mind as we're walking through this journey of parenting together, and appreciating the style of the spouse, of the other parent. And on that same note, one of the questions that has come up, and it's a really, really common question, I think, in every parent's mind, what are those important values that we need to teach our children from age 0 onwards, and during this newborn infancy phase?
See, age 0 or infancy age, you don't teach children values. They pick up everything from your presence, your emotions, your care for them. And when I say care, you know that children in certain places or even in villages are left to play with nature. In fact, I had seen a documentary on a tribal village, very remote tribal. They live on tree homes which are open without any boundaries. And there is no case of children falling down. And you will see the parents are absolutely unworried. While in urban cities, how paranoid sometimes parents are that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Of course, you have to be watchful. Even there, I'm sure the mother's a part of her mind is watching the child, but most of the time these things never happen. No? So how the children pick up those instincts, and sometimes we find in urban cities where children are overprotected, in fact they do fall over steps, etc., and then it only confirms the mother's or father's belief that they have to be protected. Main thing is that the children at that moment should be surrounded by positive vibes. Not that parents are screaming and shouting at each other, thinking that that child is so small, that child doesn't know. Or even when the child is sleeping, talk things which are disturbing to them itself. That around the child, not to create negative vibrations, negative thoughts, negative emotions. See, in the mind, it will come just as we accept that today, even as we grow up, that today our parent is, one of our parents are over anxious, or they are worried, or at this moment they are even angry. We understand and we accept. Same way these little infants, they may not have the understanding. What you're naturally going through is fine. But when we have outbursts of emotions, over anxiousness and disturbance, the children pick up. So therefore, what values you practice, what attitudes you keep, you do not have to teach the child. As you know that certain things you have to, just like their sleep patterns, their feeding patterns, you have to slowly wean them off certain things. That will have to be done. But the values, etc., when they grow up, that is when we start giving them the values. Therefore, it is actually said, understanding the psychology of the children, the great rishis have said, Panchavarshani lalayet. The first 5 years is not to pamper the child, but to nurture the child with affection. So, we have also spoken in the earlier session on prenatal. Just as in the womb, the emotions of the mother and the environment, and particularly the father being the closest, the environment around affects the child. Same way also infants are affected. They may not be able to remember, you may not be able to locate also, but surprisingly, those memories can be there. So at this important is that you practice the good attitudes, values around your infants. That is the best way for it to reach them.
That's an excellent perspective and a very logical and practical way to approach how it is that we're able to exemplify not values necessarily, but that positive energy to the newborns and infants at this stage. So Swamiji, they say that you should sow those seeds of spirituality very early on, and that has the deepest impact. How is it that we can do that for our newborn child, for our infant child?
The infant child is developing his brain so quickly, and at that time, even modern science tells us that by the age of 1 to 4, the brain is kind of completely developed, all rounded, and one can just, and that's why we find how they pick up languages, how they pick up certain expressions, particularly of their own parents. They are literally absorbing knowledge, values from all around them. That's why, as we said, what's important is to create that right environment, that atmosphere around them, they will absorb. Now, just as even in prenatal we have already spoken that if at that time the parents' thoughts are spiritual, the behavior also will automatically be spiritual. The concerns for the child will also be spiritual. The atmosphere in the house will also be spiritual. For example, rather than playing some heavy metal or pop music, you'd probably be having something more soothing playing in the house, or even bhajans or hymns playing in the house. And we have seen that, and I'm sure you have also seen it, that how children respond to such music. People respond to such pictures. Even now, I see many of them, and I just day before yesterday, when you showed my video, or when I was speaking on the video call to your little baby, you saw the immediate response on her face, and it was not some image moving. This immediate response you saw, and it was so amazing to watch on her face that even I was taken aback and touched. That immediately that sense of familiarity and the way that look came in her eyes, you can clearly see that she could identify. It is not just, just a fascination. So you can see that how children absorb. So anything, even how they see, say, one of the divine pictures, etc., and they know that it is somewhere you go and bow, you will see them. What to say about infants? I have seen animals do it. That they will actually go and bow. The child actually extends the hand, and it's not even accidental. You can see that. So you can, from all these, you can begin to see that children are imbibing what the parents are living, feeling, thinking, and speaking. So create that spiritual atmosphere around them. Don't think that they're too small and they will not absorb it. Have, symbols or pictures of divinity. Have, bhajans or hymns or chants that are played. And today, because we've got technology, we can do it for them. And even when we were little children, mothers used to sing their children to sleep with these lullabies, which had in them certain lovely values, even basically certain affirmations. That my baby is so calm, she's inviting or he is inviting, sleep, now sleep, come and make my baby rest. Now, one would think, does the child understand all this? But the mother's emotion at that time goes to the child. So same way, all the spiritual knowledge, if it can go prenatal into the child, like in Abhimanyu or even Prahlad, then what to talk about children who are developing outside the womb. So yes, just create that atmosphere. You can't just, and then children will automatically, if you chant Om to them, you will see that even those who can't speak, they know already how to, move their lips. And therefore, sometimes the first words that will come out of them will sound like Om. Now, you might think they don't understand, but that vibration itself has an impact, and those children will keep on chanting Om, 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 and sometimes to calm them also. So, they do know, and it is very helpful. So, especially the chanting of the names of the Lord, all this thing will be very helpful in that bringing up of the child.
Excellent, wonderful. I think these are all very important and practical and very easy to apply in our everyday life. And it's definitely something all of us can do to ensure that our children get those seeds of spirituality very early. So Swamiji, hearing how impactful all of our emotions and everything that we think and the presence that we carry around our newborn, our infant is, one of the things I'd like to know is, I've gotten upset in the past few weeks, in the past few months. I've felt all sorts of emotions. Some of them have not been positive. And now I'm wondering, is that something that's going to, damage my child for life? Or is that something that's going to have such a deep impact on her that she can't come away from that? How should I think of these mistakes that I've made through this parenting journey in such a short period of time?
As I said, don't be hard on yourself. And I did mention that stop feeling guilty as a parent. You have your emotions also. And I said also at that time that there are certain natural emotions that keep coming up. Children know, and as I said, they absorb to even accept that. Just as when we grow up, we accept the anger moments of our parents when we know that it's not deliberate, So certain natural emotions children do experience, but yes, we must try as much as possible that in front of the child, as even they grow up, that a lot of outbursts of emotions, and especially at that time, any kind of negative conversation, etc., are withheld from the child, not kept talking in front of the child. So now when you have a little infant, that's why I said the children do absorb, nothing to feel guilty, children absorb what is good for them more than what is negative for them. Again, natural instinct. No? So even if there will be a lot of negativity, the children still, by sheer osmosis, grab what is the best. So again, when there is a lot of negativity, some negativity will also go in, and that is what we have to be cautious about. But children will absorb that which is the best, and that's the way nature really works. So destructive is only when it becomes very forceful. Otherwise, even from a storm, what nature derives is the best. So don't worry about those kind of emotions and don't be hard on yourself. But yes, one has to be a little bit more mindful and attentive, as I used the word before, attentive that in front of children, we do not have too many of these outbursts or these kind of conversations. We could probably go out of the room. But let me tell you, little children absorb even what's going on in the house. But not to be worried, there are certain natural emotions, natural impulses that do come up. Please don't be worried. If it's natural, it happens because of this certain amount of pressure or stress at that time, that even you're able to express it rather than suppress it is also a positive feeling that goes to the child. So don't overly get concerned about that.
That's wonderful, Swamiji. It makes me feel a lot better, and I will be making sure that I'm mindful as much as possible in every moment to handle those emotions as healthfully as I can in that moment. So thank you so much for that, Swamiji. And Swamiji, one very, very important question that I have is, what are the 16 sanskaras according to our Sanatan Dharma, our Hindu culture, and what is the spiritual significance of each of those?
That's good, Priya, you asked, because your previous question about how do we inculcate values or spirituality in the children. In fact, these 16 samskaras that start from even before conception and through, the child's journey in the womb, and as the child grows up, these samskaras, these rites that are performed to give the child certain positive impressions. Though it is a wonderful topic, but in another session we shall go into the great details of it and how today those samskaras can be easily imparted at the different stages of the life wherever young parents are. So it will be another complete session, and in that we will bring this out more elaborately.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. This was very, very helpful and very enlightening. And I know everyone that's watching will gain so much from this session and will take away so many nuggets that will help them in their daily journey as a parent. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
जय श्री राम गाते चलते हनुमान सोते जागते हनुमान जय श्री राम where is Jai Shri Ram living in Hanuman where is Hanuman living in Jai Shri Ram singing Rama 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 playing Veena Rama 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 flying jumping Rama 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 thinking loving Rama 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 Jai Shri Ram होते बैठे हनुमान जपते जपते हनुमान जय श्री राम where is Jai Shri Ram living in Hanuman where is Hanuman living in Jai Shri Ram singing Rama 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 playing Veena Rama 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 flying jumping Rama 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 thinking loving Rama 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 singing Rama 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 playing Veena Rama 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 flying jumping Rama 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 thinking loving Rama 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 thinking loving